Your IELTS score might have way less to do with memorizing vocabulary than you think. It's actually all about your mindset. Today, we're going to dive into a totally different way to approach the test, what we're calling the IELTS mindset. Okay, so have you ever heard this? It's a super common and honestly really frustrating story. You have someone who speaks fantastic, fluent English, right? Maybe they've even lived abroad for years. And then they get their IELTS score back, and it's shockingly low. How does that even happen? Well, it all points to a massive misunderstanding of what this exam is really all about. We can actually call this the good English paradox, and what it reveals is something crucial. Being good at English and being good at IELTS, well, they are two completely different skills. The test has this whole other layer of strategy and logic that just being fluent on its own can't break through. And here is the single most important point you need to get. IELTS is not testing how eloquently you can order a coffee. Not at all. It's a standardized system. Think of it like a machine, designed to test one thing: your ability to perform very specific tasks under a ton of pressure, all while following a strict set of rules. So you have to think of it less like a conversation and way more like a game. So if it's a game, the big question is, how do you win? Well, you have to stop thinking like an English student and start thinking like the test itself. And doing that means unlocking the IELTS mindset. So what is it exactly? The best way to think of the IELTS mindset is like a new operating system for your brain. It's a framework that lets you see the exam not as this big, scary language barrier, but as a series of puzzles. Puzzles that have an internal logic that you can absolutely learn to solve. This mindset is built on 3 core pillars. First, we're going to cover how to think like the examiner so you understand exactly what they're looking for. Second, we'll get into strategic precision, which is all about playing by the rules. And third, practical confidence, which is how you handle the pressure of the day itself. All right, let's break them down. So let's jump into that first pillar. Think like the examiner. Honestly, this might be the biggest mental shift you need to make. It's all about getting out of your own head and into theirs. This chart just perfectly contrasts the two mindsets. On the left, you've got the typical student approach, trying to share your really deep and interesting opinions. But look at the right. The IELTS examiner isn't looking for that. They have a checklist. They are simply scanning your work for specific bits of evidence that prove you meet their criteria. Your entire job is to just give them that evidence. That's it, exactly. Your goal is not to be a creative genius. It's to tick the boxes on the official marking sheet, the public band descriptors. Your whole performance, from start to finish, should be designed to make it as easy as possible for the examiner to go check, 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 and give you the points. And that leads us perfectly into our second pillar, strategic precision. If the first pillar was about changing your perspective, this one is all about sharpening your technique. It's about treating the test like a series of technical tasks with very, very specific rules. A perfect example of this is the true, false, not given question type. Your assumptions, your general knowledge, it's all completely worthless here. The only thing that matters is this cold, hard logic. Is the evidence right there in the text? It's true. Does the text say the exact opposite? It's false. Is there just no information about it either way? Then it has to be not given. No inferring, no guessing. This is such a huge part of strategic precision. You have to remember, every question is worth the same amount. You don't get bonus points for cracking the hardest one. So if you waste 5 minutes wrestling with one difficult question, you just lost time you could have used to nail 3 easier ones. Knowing when to just let it go and move on is an absolutely critical skill. Precision also comes down to task response. I mean, you could write the most brilliant, persuasive, beautiful essay on the advantages of living in a city. But if the question asked for both the advantages and the disadvantages, you failed the task, and your score will be stuck at a low band, no matter how amazing your writing is. All right, let's move on to our third and final pillar, practical confidence. This is all about the mental game. Because, look, knowing the strategies is one thing, but can you actually use them when the clock is ticking? IELTS is a high-stakes marathon, and building the mental stamina to perform from start to finish is absolutely non-negotiable. This is so important for the speaking test. Your goal is to be communicative, not perfect. If you stumble over a word or you can't think of the absolute perfect word, do not freeze up. Just correct yourself and keep the conversation flowing. That's actually way better. It shows confidence and it shows fluency. This mental stamina is built on real skills. For the listening test, it's about active listening, that ability to stay laser focused for a full 30 minutes without your mind wandering off. And for speaking, it's about spontaneity, just keeping that natural conversational rhythm going, even when you're nervous.
So, we've walked through the three pillars: thinking like the examiner, using strategic precision, and having practical confidence. Now let's boil all of this down into a few new rules of thumb that you can start using right away.
This table really shows the whole shift in action. On the left, you've got the old, ineffective way of doing things. And on the right, you have the IELTS mindset. The big idea here is moving away from trying to impress and moving towards being effective. It's not about using big, fancy words. It's about using precise words. It's not about trying to make zero mistakes. It's about showing you can use a range of different sentence structures. It's about strategy and efficiency over just brute force. Ultimately, the real takeaway is this: you need to change your relationship with the exam. It is not some monster you should be afraid of. It's just a system with a set of rules. And once you understand the rules, you can win. So are you ready to stop just taking the test and start playing it?